The views and opinions expressed in the Golden Boot podcast are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Golden Boot podcast as a whole.
Y'all ready to get rolling? Quiet on the set. Hey, welcome back to another episode of HBCU. It's your boy Pooh Bear. I got my man Aunt Petty Murphy in the building. What's good, my boy?
It's a Monday, bro.
I know. They ain't got to get me started.
If Monday is ever Monday, it would be today.
Yeah. So you know I do the little league.
Man.
Listen.
How was first practice, big dog?
First practice with so it was the first practice with helmets.
With helmets, yeah, and pads, yeah.
It's all I heard. My head itching. I'm hot. Can I take this off? I can't get this head. My helmet's stuck. First of all, you shouldn't have a big ass head like that. No, I shouldn't say that. But them kids funny, man. They was. And then it got to a point, the coach got mad. Like the head coach, he was like, all right, everybody on the line. We running. I was like, yes, sir, let's go. Man, them kids, I ain't never seen kids.
Giving you the blues, huh?
Man, I ain't never seen kids cheat so much, man. Them kids were lining up halfway down the field trying to stop.
Starting bad habits early.
Stop, man. But nah, man, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be
something.
It's gonna be yeah. So and then how
my boy do though? How my boy do his first practice?
He was all right to the end. And then he came over
to the running.
No, he was good with the running. He came over to me afterwards and said I'm talking about tears was forming in his eyes. He was like, Daddy, I just want to go home and take a bath. I knew it was a bad thing. He never asked me to go home and take a bath. So I just want to go home and take a bath, man. I'm itching. The grass was biting me. Bugs was biting me. I was like, no, bro, no.
Oh, man.
But you know how it is, man.
Good stuff.
But, man, we got some very special guests in the building.
Yes, sir. It's going to be a good one tonight.
Look forward to this conversation. I got some, I don't know. I'll say this. It's somebody we got on this show. Well, I ain't gonna say somebody. It's one school represented on this show that everybody that talked about. So
yeah,
everybody
had a lot to say about this school.
Yeah, so we gonna get to it. We are gonna get to it, and then I'm just without further ado, man. Before we get started, man, give a shout out to our sponsors over at BetOnline, betonline.ag. We'll be back in 1 minute. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your sports information, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds, lines, and player injury reports for this year's NBA and NHL playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters. This season, we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. We have everything from NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL to golf, tennis, UFC, and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games that you can play right from your home. Head on over to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use the promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hey, we want to first give a shout out to our good friends over at Bethune-Cookman from the HailWildcats.com. And also the Wildcat Warehouse. Boy, let me say it. Tell that 3 times fast. But we want to welcome Mr. Jared Bell and Mr. Stephen Holmes. Thank y'all for joining us. But we also, from Tiger Talk, our good man, Zoe Phillips, from Tiger Talk Podcast with the 1400 Klub.
What's going on, gentlemen?
Fellas.
What's
thank
going
y'all.
on, man?
Yo.
All right. Hey, before we get started, I want to say this. Zoe, extend this to Ken and Mr. Marcus. Congratulations on that 50K. You know what I'm saying? Raising that 50K. That was huge.
Appreciate you.
Yes.
Appreciate
Man, all inspiring. And I wish that all HBCUs could get that done and do it like that. But kudos to y'all, man.
Appreciate you. But before we get to it, let me expound on that too, because I know when it kind of got out of social media space, people thought that it was a fundraiser for the school, and it wasn't. This was not something that the school had no hand in this per se. It wasn't orchestrated by the school. Man, actually, when we did it, which even you guys, and I'm glad you guys from Bethune-Cookman here, we specifically said, man, we feel like every HBCU should be doing this. You know what I'm saying? Or going in this platform. It's almost like, and I said I hate using the term. You hear pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, but I hate using that term because where it kind of goes to. But it's like I use that as an example of like, man, just taking whatever we can and change the narrative. So what it was, just to kind of, because they kind of actually gotten started, we're in the process of doing some things and, at the school, and we're in the process of actually going over budget for something in particular. So we couldn't expound on it because what's about to happen. And there's a segment of people that don't know, if you can kind of speak in code what I'm saying, a segment of people that don't know what's going on because they watch us. So that's why we couldn't say what it was. All right. So they want to go over budget. So mind you, something is going to be done. And so they came to us because we have a platform and they used us as a means to go over budget. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. It wasn't a fundraiser at all. It was just a call to arms because we've been crowd surfing. And so when we did that, when we got over, we did 100,000 in 6 months, cash, just on YouTube. And so they saw what we were doing, they came to us. And so that's how it actually took place. And that's why I wanted everybody at every school to say like, man, look, if we could do it, you see what I'm saying? Then everybody should be able to do it. Because it's not like we got thousands of people to donate. It was literally like the same 300 people. That's it.
Yeah. Ken in the building too. What's good, Ken?
Yeah, man, that's major, bro. And sometimes all it takes is one. You know what I mean? And for everybody else to see the example and to follow the example. So kudos to y'all for kind of being that trailblazer in a sense.
Man, appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like certain things from certain schools I wish I could take to do like that. You know what I'm saying? What you said, y'all, you know what I'm saying, what y'all did, what A&M is doing with the doghouse, the task force stuff, like creating and taking the promoters out of it, you know what I'm saying, and bring it back to the fans. So
we need to talk off the air, because I'll say this, we haven't gone public with this, but our crew, HailWildcats, we got a gridiron club that we started. Through that, it becomes it's actually empowering NIL. So we've already started. We got some NIL funds. Don't you for a second think that some of those names you've been seeing 4 stars and 3 stars come out, that's not just because they're coming out. That's because there's some NIL floor. And so
we'll talk offline, but we do that too.
Yeah, we got a significant amount of money already flowing through that. So we need to talk, so catch up. But so we can put some heads
not a
together.
problem. I'll drop my number. We can talk. Trust me, we do that too.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I love to see it, man.
Man, tell me about it. So Mr. Jared, Mr. Steven, tell us about the HailWildcats.com before we get started into the actual football. Tell us about the HailWildcats.com.
Yeah, HailWildcats.com. We started that 12 years ago. Just it's kind of one of those things that Bethune-Cookman, follow Bethune-Cookman closely. There wasn't a fan site directed towards fans. Everything you got from Bethune-Cookman either came from the university or came through the local news sources. But we decided we need to do some things that we can actually focus on topics that we're interested in. We want to make sure that some of those background things that are happening that we can spotlight and highlight the players of the university and tell our own story. And so that's how we started 12 years ago. It's a football centric website. We do cover a little bit of baseball, but essentially we follow football. We travel to all of the away games. We support the university. We feed the kids every week. We, and so there's a ton of things that go on through HailWildcats.com. And so including some of those things that I just alluded to a little bit earlier that we'll talk about in more detail through the website in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
What's funny is hearing all this, talk Zoe, what you just talked about, Jared, Steven, but we keep getting told that HBCUs don't give back, alums don't give back. But that's funny. I'm just saying. I find it funny that we hear that, but
it's a bunch of miseducation, bro.
Right. Hey,
yeah, I think I was gonna say we can do more, but there's absolutely efforts at every university to increase giving and do what we can to like help our schools. Like everybody that's probably listening, that comes on these types of podcasts, these are people that care about their schools. So it's definitely a bad false narrative for sure.
All right. I do want to say, I had to bring this picture back up. That avatar, that logo is probably one of the coldest logos that I have seen that's just independent from because that's not necessarily the school's logo, but for y'all, that thing cold.
I appreciate that. That's a lot of hard work on that one.
It's cold, yeah.
All right, so let's start at the miseducation and misinformation. So yeah, I would start with Bethune, but I want to start with Jackson State.
Okay.
With the former coach leaving and staff leaving and players leaving and all that, there's been kind of an opinion going around that for some reason Jackson State just gonna fall off the face of the earth. Can you expound on the misinformation there and kind of let us know what's going on at Jackson State and what y'all got brewing over there?
Sure, simple. Well, the majority of the narrative when you hear that you get when people say we're going to fall off, it's not really a narrative. It's more or less
they hoping.
It's a thought process of what they would like to see happen or hope to happen. Yeah. When people look at numbers, they'll say, for an example, Jackson State had 50 players to leave. That's true. But what also is true is we had 111 guys on the roster last year. So by my math, we retained half the team. So when I say that, then they'll say, the guys you retained, they're mostly just walk-ons. And I'll say, that's true. But you do know a good bit of the number of the guys that you're counting that left. Quite a bit of those are walk-ons too. So you can't have it both ways. Also add to the fact that, we have the number 2 ranked recruiting class in the country. Now, granted, when I say that, our recruit rankings don't matter. And I'll say they don't, because I can show you some of the ways in which they do. Because typically when I say they do, we're quick to pinpoint and go to a one-off, right? They'll say, it's more 3-stars in the NFL than 5-stars. I'm like, that's true, but do you realize there are way more 3-stars than 5-stars? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So there's a reason for it. And then when we go speak to a 5-star bus, you always gravitate to 1. Well, we never said there weren't any, but that's a low percentage. Then we talk about the 0-stars who panned out to be great players. You get those every year, but it's not a high number of those. You're looking at one-offs. You see what I'm saying? And so recruit. Now, granted, is it the telltale all? No, it isn't. But it's mostly right majority of the time. I mean, typically the team with the best players, the best Jimmys and Joes, coaching is kind of irrelevant. Coaching helps it, obviously, but the team with the best players generally win. You know what I'm saying? It's very rare that you're going to have these. Now, when you have an evenly matched team with talent, coaching, separates the two. But, again, when we sit there and say, well, we have, I'll put it to you like this. Yes, we got Deion Sanders as the head coach, but it's kind of a coincidence that the previous 2 years we had the number one ranked recruiting class in the country. By the way, we won the SWAC 2 years in a row. They kind of correlate and go with each other. So now T.C. Taylor comes in, number 2 ranked class in the country. And, what I'm saying? Now, granted, there are some other things that we have to look into. Again, he is a first-year coach. But there's a small nuance in that was that he was on the staff with Deion Sanders, but also prior to Deion Sanders. So he has familiarity when you talk about the new players that's in, plus the old players that was retained. So to have this demise that we're just going to fall off the face of the earth because, we lost players. And also, I'll say this and I'll be quiet. I want people to understand that this high number of players leaving is the new way of the world. This is going to go for every team every year now. It's free agency. So
pretty much.
I do want to get you, Zoe, to clear up a fact. When we had Corey on way back when Deion first left, he talked about this, but I want to bring this up because it keeps coming up. TC Taylor was not a Deion hire.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, TC was scheduled to possibly be the coach, not just before Deion, but prior to the coach before that too as well.
That is correct. Before Deion Sanders, when Deion Sanders actually came on in tow, Deion Sanders retained Coach O and TC Taylor. That was by design. And also, let me also put this out there too, because people say, "Oh, well, TC Taylor was demoted." Well, sometimes people should get to the why. TC Taylor was in Luau for a job offer because he interviewed for the head coach with Prairie View, because he interviewed for that position. So, previous coach didn't like it. And so that's why we have to change in the first Celebration Bowl. So, people think it's because of performance. No. If you go back into what we did the first season, when TC Taylor became the OC, the offense took off. And so ask yourself, why would any OC whose offense take off not call the bowl game at the last minute? So I can actually, put that to bed. But TC and Otis was actually on the staff 2 years prior to Deion Sanders coming on, and they were retained for that particular reason.
Gotcha. All right. Now, Mr. Jared, Mr. Steven, y'all had a very ugly kind of coaching turnover and it's funny because it wasn't necessarily hired, but the coach in limbo, I guess you could call it.
That was never.
Yeah. With Ed Reed coming in, was that more I guess it's proper to say, was that more in a following of, hey, let's do the Jackson State route and try to get a high profile name and bring him in?
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. I mean, let's face it. Say what you want to about Coach Prime. The man's a unicorn. Mm-hmm. You just don't find people like that walking around everywhere. What he's accomplished in a multitude of professions, but more than that, the way he's able to captivate. Right now, I have my brother's a high school football coach. He got some big time recruits on it. So Coach Deion last week, or Coach Prime, he actually called one of the high 4-star kids, and everybody in the room stopped. We're talking about 17, 16-year-old kids who never saw him play. And they were looking at each other saying, it's him. It's him. And so he has that type of gravitas, if you will. And so, of course, everybody's looking for the next unicorn. Ed Reed appeared, to have the Hall of Fame credentials, perhaps the best safety ever play. And so everybody get excited about that to see if they can catch lightning in a bottle a second time. Ed Reed was not the right man for the job. However, he came in and gave voice to some things that alumni and students have been crying out for. And so he served his purpose. I would say he served his purpose well to highlight certain things, but he also displayed that he was not the right man to lead the football program and to lead young men. So two things can be true at the same time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you did in spotlighting and highlighting some things, giving guys like Steve and I to amplify our voices, people like us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you did not display that you had the temperament to lead young men when sports across the board is about one thing. It's about problem solving. You got to go out and deal with conflict, resolve conflict, put it into action. And he showed that he didn't have the temperament to do that. So you serve your purpose. God bless you. Hopefully we can make something of it now.
And I'll piggyback on that because Ed Reed, I felt like if there was ever a chance for him to like show that he was ready to meet the moment, there was a moment when after kind of everything had happened. And if you guys remember that interview where he had finally gotten his publicist with him, and they were sitting in the hotel room, and it was at that moment I knew that the hire was bad, but I said to myself, I'm like, he's not ready. He's not ready. You have your publicist sitting right next to you,
talking for you,
and you can't even keep your composure with your publicist in the room sitting next to you. And that was when I'm like, man, you just wanted it to work. And that was just a selfish part of a lot of us, especially at Cookman, because of, I'm sure we're gonna get to where we've been the last couple of years, but you had all of that planned in the back of everybody's head. And then Ed Reed comes in, and it's like lightning in a bottle. We're trying to Dion 2.0 this thing, and little old Bethune-Cookman lands Ed Reed. But then you realize that everything that glitter, you know what I'm saying, ain't gold. And we paid a price for that type of a hire, but we also got some things in return. So like Jerry said, there was some good that came from it, but not before there was some pain and heartache. And I guess that's, such is life at this point.
If y'all could go back, would y'all do it again?
Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't. And I was the first one that was like, oh, hey, we back. I was the first one, like, I was on the bandwagon, like, hey, you couldn't tell me nothing, bro. We got Ed Reed, hey, cancel Christmas. But real quick, we found out, like, uh-oh.
So even with everything that came to light and all the changes that are being made and will be made because of it, you still would say, nah, we good.
But I don't know that changes are made because of it.
Okay,
there were a lot of these things were already in the work. Even like the practice field, all that stuff was already in the works. What he did was exactly. But what happened is when you have a personality like that, they begin to highlight certain things that speed things up. Even just point in case, the practice field was already in work. We had guys who worked for the university, guys who owe the university a favor that was actually doing certain things, alumni. But Ed Reed come in, he start ringing the bell, and some of what that's happened is that then we get to February, or we get to April, and then the athletic director say, hey everybody, let's announce that the practice field is going to be here by August. No, it's not, because I've already talked to the designer. It's going to take 3 months to get permits and another 3 months to put it down. But that's the sort of thing that because Ed Reed starts ringing the bell, you feel like you have to react to it because you're not controlling your own narrative. So you got to get out in front of it and say something, because you can't compete with that level of publicity, and you don't have a plan. And so you make announcements and pronouncements about things instead of just saying, hey, we have a plan. It's in motion. It's going to happen. You start rushing timelines. You start pressing people. You start trying to demand things from the manufacturer, who we've already paid, to have things that they don't have in stock yet. And then you make bad pronouncements. So, that's the kind of, it's good that people, that their eyeballs on it. So certain things that weren't happen, maybe we can get into a pattern of making sure they do happen. But it wasn't because of Ed Reed. Ed Reed may have been a catalyst to speed things up, but yeah.
Understand.
Yeah, and what it did was, and I actually wrote an article about this, that very element that happened with Cookman not being ready to have such a big name associated with the school. We just were not ready for that, and it happened so quick, and we don't have the apparatus, the communications apparatus in place to be able to handle somebody who can come and suck the life out of a room like Ed Reed could. And so everything that was happening with the school was at the mercy of what he was saying, what he was doing, and we were playing catch up. We never were on offense ever when he was on campus. We were playing from behind. He'd say something, and then we'd have to come and clean it up. And that ain't no way to run institute of higher learning, let alone what I would still consider a big time HBCU football program. We just didn't handle it like I felt like we could have. And I mean, it was a perfect storm, man. It was a perfect storm.
It's so many similarities in this. For an example, you guys have HailWildcats, the website. You've had it for 12 years, right? Same thing with the 1400 Club. We've been around since 2003 when we first started. And just like when Deion Sanders, I've told the story millions of times. If you go back to the famous press conference when we announced that he was being hired, you can actually go on his Instagram right now today as I speak. The very next day after their press conference, there's a video of him walking into a building. He was like, Ashley, what is this? What is this? Tell me what this is.
I've been looking for that video. I have been looking for that video.
It's still there. It was the very next day. And Ashley Robinson had the blueprints. Oh, this is going to be this. This is the locker room. It was already in place. But people was like, oh, Deion Sanders.
But Deion paid for it, though. But they said Deion paid for it.
Oh, Deion paid for it, right? Okay.
That's why he didn't take no salary at Jackson State, so he could pay for the locker room.
Deion Sanders got paid a very, very nice salary at Jackson State, and also Deion Sanders was paid more than $300,000 at Jackson State as well. But it just shows how it mirrors even the things going on at Bethune-Cookman. Just like, but I just had to say that because the narrative is, everything that happened at Jackson State was because of Deion Sanders. Now, I'll never diminish what he did because being that he's a light in your eye, I call him Michael Jordan in cleats. When you talk about the gravitas of his persona and everything that comes with him. And I still would applaud him and thank him for everything that he did at Jackson State because he brought a whole new audience on to Jackson State, but as well as HBCU football. And so, yes, it was because of him and the relationships and the connections that he had with Walmart that we were able to get the practice field. But, I was even asked in an interview once, like, what all tangible did he bring to Jackson State? What I said, well, tangible things that you can actually grab onto and hold. The only thing physical there that he brought was a practice field. That's it. Everything else the school did. And it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around, But I didn't want to interrupt. It's just that
no.
And Jerry talked. It's just like, I promise you, these mirror images that we dealt with, when we hired him, I promise you, everything was the same. People act like things weren't working. Like, we have our website. We've been up, like I said, since 2003. They've been up since for 12 years now. And it's very, very similar. Very similar.
It's funny you say that. I got into an argument. I got into an
video, bro.
Yeah, I got into an argument with somebody, and I knew that video because Corey told us that video was there, but I couldn't find it. But I did find the article where they announced phase 1 being complete and showed the pictures. And I think Deion was hired in like September, and in like December it was finished or had started, something like that. I was like, here's your proof. And they were like, nah, that's not proof. They just move fast. Like, come on, man. Come on.
Well, let me let everybody in on a little secret when it comes to construction at any HBCU. Typically when things become expensive from a construction standpoint, it's because of labor, right? Manpower, right? The last biggest thing that was built, I'm gonna use Prairie View football stadium for example. Do you know why it took them so long to build their stadium? Because they'll have a short man crew. It's by design. Typically, anything on that, like FAMU, matter of fact, FAMU just redid their stadium, right? And the stadium is still aluminum right now on the rebuild. They just put new beams up and it's still aluminum seating. It took them a long time to get that done because they short the man out. They short the manpower to do it. That's at every HBCU. We never have this full, like, you'd be like, oh my God, they got over 100 guys working, on a construction site. You'll never see that at HBCU because we shorten the manpower. And that's where your cost comes in at labor.
Yeah. Skeleton crewed out, man.
Yeah. I was told that because of that labor, that's why Ed Reed got the forklift and stuff himself.
That's exactly what happened.
I'll do it myself. I got it.
Yeah.
Watch out.
They ain't got nobody working out here. I do it.
Ed Reed was out there digging trenches and painting and stuff.
I heard he was on the excavator himself. He was
man. He was doing it all.
Hey, man, we look, Prime cutting grass, man. We ain't had nobody cutting grass, JSU. Prime cutting himself.
Yeah. Crazy, man.
But I do want to, because, Bethune moved on, just like Jackson State. moved on. Bethune moved on, and to me, made probably one of the best hires they could have made. Bringing in not just someone with excellent credentials, but family. Tell us about Coach Woody and what he means to Bethune.
Yeah, well, Woody's Bethune. We're very similar to to TC over at Jackson State. That's a Bethune guy. That's a Cookman man, is what we call him. That's a Cookman man. And so we did a poll back on HailWildcats.com back in when Terry Sims was released, and we had a list of names. Who do you want to come in? Ed Reed was one of the names that was there. Overwhelmingly, the fans wanted Raymond Woody to be our head coach. Overwhelmingly. There was interest from some other pretty, high-name individuals. Raymond Woody is who the fans want. I am not normally it needs to be an alumni to accomplish the job, but for this job at this time, we needed a Cookman man. We needed someone who's been in the trenches, someone who can relate, someone who knows what it's like and what it means to carry the university. Obviously, every university has a personality of itself. Cookman folk, we are service-minded, service-driven. That's why you'll never see us act like those folk up in the other city, up in the panhandle of Florida. That's just not our personality. It's not the culture. And so we needed someone who's been in the trenches, who can come in, who has the credentials, who has the ability, who has the relationships in the university, but also with high school coaches, with recruits around the country, and somebody who can rebuild this program. So I think without question, Raymond Woody, with his recruiting background, with his experience, again, throughout Power Fives and FBS, and again, because he can pick up the phone and call alumni and they know that they're going to get the truth. That's who he is. He is a down home, very relatable country guy. He's not going to walk in the room and overwhelm you with charisma, but he's going to give you his word. His word is bond. You can trust it, and you trust your kids with them. You trust your program with it because he's an honorable human being.
Agreed.
And a great coach.
So I'm glad you said that last part, because all that other stuff is great, but you get paid to win ball games. And so
absolutely,
we know Terry Sims' tenure was kind of rough, but he had talent. I mean, you look at some of the guys he had. Kamari Avery should be playing on Sundays. That's the NFL body, but
easily.
He was
NFL, NBA,
whatever he wanted to do.
Jump man, whatever you want to call it. That dude.
He was underutilized in a sense. Yes. So my question is, what does Bethune-Cookman look like? First game of the week on that first Saturday. What do they look like as a football team?
Well, we look like we're playing Memphis, so that don't look good. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. But
there's a lot of shakeup with the team too this year, and obviously, and I know Jerry. I'll let Jerry expound a little bit more because he's a little bit closer to the action. But I will say that, I mean, like a lot of teams, we're starting new, man, like new. So there is no expectation right now. At least, Jerry and I, we talk, and we just kind of both agreed. We said, you know what, we just gonna go into this season, and we just gonna we gonna pray about it. You know what I'm saying? And we just gonna hope for the best. But okay, and let me say this: that's not saying that I feel like we should improve this year, but it's like we just don't know with so many new pieces, so many new elements. And I let Jerry kind of speak to the more nuanced outlook.
Yeah. It's a year zero. I don't even count it year one. It's a year zero because again, it just from the spring roster announced at the end of March, 20 of those guys are gone. I'm not talking about the end of last year. I'm talking about from the spring roster. But a lot of that is there's only a handful of those that we really kind of want to stay. And that's because this was legitimately flipping the roster. And so we got to flip this roster. As Zoe said earlier, this is new college football. And so you're not stuck with guys that don't want to be there, and coaches aren't coaching guys that they don't want. And so, but to your point, we had talent. We had a lot of talent because we lost 7 guys off defense that could have been here right now, but they're gone. And they're all on, one of them at Northwestern. They all throughout Western Kentucky. So these guys are landing at
FPS
places.
program.
They're not going down. There was plenty of talent. The problem is, and Steve want to get into this, we had no accountability with the last coaching staff. None. Zero accountability. Players did whatever they want. These guys, they're holding these guys accountable. And what the first thing you see that in is that the GPA has already gone from like barely 2.0 to over 3.0. Guys are showing up. On the field, what we're going to see is, I think we actually have, the guys that we have right now are actually far more athletic than the team we had last year. You notice a difference in their bodies and their body types. We have players across the board. Defensive coordinator, Wembley, comes from, he was at 7 years spent at Liberty. So, he's coached good football teams and good defenses. The offensive coordinator, Joe Garbino, we will not keep him more than 2 years if he does what we think he'll do. He comes from a Division III college. He was Division III assistant coach of the year. And this guy is one of those guys who his offensive mind is ridiculous. So we have enough athletes to compete with anybody. The good thing for us, if you look across the SWAC, there's only 2 teams that have proven quarterbacks. And I mean proven on the teams they're on. That's FAMU and that's Texas Southern. Everybody else, we think we got guys. And some of us going to be right. Some of us not going to be wrong. And you either got a quarterback or you plan for next year. The other thing is, if you look throughout the East, everybody got 30, 40 new players, including the team that everybody says is going to compete with Jackson State to win the East again, FAMU. So, heck, there's no reason why we're going to go out. We're going to be competitive. I can't tell you we're going to win X number of games, because when you got 70 new players on your team, 50 to 70 new players on your team, you just don't know. What I will say is, it won't be because of a lack of quality coaching, and it won't be because of a lack of talent. It'll be rather not these guys can buy in and then implement it. But we have horses there to win football games.
And you want to know something that is, I think, might just kind of is going to be a little underrated, is that because Cookman waited so late to get started with their recruiting, because we literally, I think, were the last school in all of college football to hire a coach. What that did was allowed us to go and get those hungry guys who felt like they should have been on roster, that got overlooked and got passed over. So we didn't necessarily get the high and mighty, the super duper strong 3-star guy who know he's, this and that. We got guys.
Well, I disagree with that part.
What say? How so?
I disagree with that part. I mean, if you just going off star ratings, we got more stars than we know what to do with.
Well, what I'm saying,
I think what you're talking about, as far as the high school guys, we didn't get, but that late addition of high school guys that came after signing day. A lot of those guys, we getting guys who turning down South Florida. We getting guys who turning down Maryland. We getting guys who's turning down real legitimate offers to come play for us. And I'm talking about like legit, not just come be on my roster.
Yeah.
Like, but I think what you're talking about is that initial class on signing day. What's the guys we've signed since that time have been.
We got some dogs. we signed some dogs for sure. For sure.
Speaking of getting dogs in the transfer portal, a lot of people thought that was just a Coach Prime thing, but TC showed that he could go get some guys out there portal too. Out of the portal, Zoe, who y'all think? Who do you think is going to be y'all's biggest contributor at the portal?
Quite a few. I mean, I would say off top, I would say Seven McGee, number 1 ranked player out of the state of New York, played at Oregon. But quite a few. And the main thing we're getting Seven McGee, which you can remember, he was TC's first recruit. And the main thing that I was so glad to see him actually get him, because it actually showed that what we were doing at the Prime wasn't going to change, that we weren't going to recruit safe. You know what I mean? And, it said a lot too, because for TC not to be, for him to be a first-time head coach and to get the number 2 ranked class in the country, it says a lot. But it also shows they have been working. And I have to say this because I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. It was a 2-man crew that did it. I'm just gonna be honest. It was a 2-man crew. It was TC and Otis. That's it. TC and Otis. And even now, for an example, and being a recruiting guy, as you guys know, most FCS schools, even now, you can look at North Dakota State or South Dakota State, whoever. We're not prone to getting a lot of FCS commitments right now. I think every school right now may have 2 at the most, some 3. Jackson State has 7 right now. Not only do we have 7, 6 of them are 3-star, and they're all high school recruits. That's unheard of, and he still ain't coached his first game. Wow. You see what I'm saying? So that right there alone, that's almost, I hate to even say it, but I have to use it to give it context. This is what Deion Sanders was doing. You see what I'm saying? But the difference is this is all high school guys. Another caveat, 5 of the 7 are from Mississippi.
Gotta recruit your
That's
state.
unheard of.
Yeah. So last season, just to fill you guys in on something else, last year we had a total of 12 guys from the state of Mississippi on the whole entire roster.
Wow. Gotta recruit your state, man.
That's crazy.
Wow. So it just kind of goes into like, even answer, the question that like you asked Jared, like we'll say, what we're getting with TC. Well, I use it like this. I'm so glad that TC was actually on Coach Prime's staff because TC is one of our favorite sons, but TC played under Big Daddy, what we like to call the old JSU, all right, which is attached to, W.C. Gordon. Mm-hmm. But he was on staff before Prime got here, so he saw the remnants of how things were, but he was on board because we called it the new JSU the moment Deion Sanders came. Because it wasn't so much the recruiting and everything that Deion changed. What Deion Sanders' biggest asset to Jackson State was the day-to-day decision making and how we handle all our business and all our affairs on the day-to-day from a football operational standpoint. That's his greatest asset. He created a mindset of a new way of doing things for JSU as a whole. All right. Mm-hmm. And so TC was a part of it and saw that. So now you merge what TC knows about the old traditional legacy portion of JSU. And now you couple with what he learned from Prime and this new JSU. TC is the perfect marriage, also being that he's an alum. So he's going to take all what I would like to think of the good remnants of what Prime instilled.
Best of both worlds.
But still, it's the best of both worlds. But who better than an alum, which most of all HBCUs love, but then TC is our favorite son. And not to even segue off either one of us, but that's kind of like the same thing I like what Valley is doing. It's almost mirror imaging what Jackson State is doing. You got Hakeem, who was Ashley Robinson's right-hand man, but he's an alum of Valley, right? You're going to hire Kendrick Wade. You know what I'm saying? The great player at Valley, but an alum of Valley. And you put them together, and then that's how you springboard that thing on out. So, and that's pretty much what we did.
I keep telling y'all, better watch Valley.
What's the expectations for Jackson State in that first game this year?
1-0. 1-0. I hear some people on certain platforms saying, "Oh, JSU fans want Jackson State to go 13-0." I mean, no, we want to win every game, but we're not saying that we got to go undefeated. 13. We're not. Look, I said a lot last season, but I was well in mind for why I said it.
Yeah,
you don't hear me talking like that now. I'm saying we're gonna win, but I'm not here saying it like I told everybody last year. I'm like, we're gonna have 40 points a game. Are you crazy? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm watching them in practice. I'm telling y'all.
Toughest game on the schedule is who?
Huh?
Toughest game on the schedule is who?
Right now, I'm gonna say South Carolina State. The reason why I'm gonna say that is because you got a first-time head coach, and it's college football. We don't have a preseason game, so you don't know what you're walking into in that first game. You see what I'm saying? And South Carolina State is more than a formidable opponent when you're talking about, who the head coach is. Even when they aren't good, they have a roster's just, crazy defense. Yeah. And so you have to take that first game serious. We all do. Being
they always ready too.
And they always ready. But and when you look at FCS or even on the FBS scale, most of your upsets happen in week 1.
That's true.
And so that's why I'm like, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that to try to discredit FAMU or Texas State. I know they're going to be tough games. You see what I'm saying? But being that we have a first-time coach, all these new players, you got to get that monkey off your back. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I said the first game right now, to me, will be the toughest one.
Yeah. Let me ask this, though, because you talked about the recruits that you got in, players you got from the portal and stuff. You lost a lot of your secondary. But from what I've been hearing, not necessarily from a talent wise, but your secondary might actually be better than last year as far as more cohesive, top to bottom, and not just like strong safety wise, strong cornerback wise, but like overall it's a little bit stronger.
Well, actually, when it comes to snaps, we really didn't lose much in the secondary because people look at the unicorn, which is Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter only played 6 games.
And we talk wide receiver a lot.
When we talk about starters, look at who we were back. K5 and Jalen were your starters.
Yep.
So that's who's starting this year. Now, when you talk about safeties, I know when we say, I'm going to just tell you, we upgrade their safety. Me saying it is not a shot at Cam. Cam was first team all conference. No people will say, well, how so? It's the style of play. All right. We were just straight man, and we coached arrogantly last year. All right. Because we knew we pretty much, for better lack of words, we knew we wanted to out-talent some people with the depth that we had. All right. Now, when you add this, you lose Shallow, you add Nasayas, who was an FBS All-American. And Shallow, to his credit, as good of a player he is, if he can't hit you, he becomes a liability. We upgraded because Isaias is great in coverage at free safety. I mean, amazing in coverage. Then also you talking about adding Kedron Callaghan. He's a bigger, better version of Shiloh from ULM. And like I said, you still got Jalen and K5 out there. You know, when we played FAMU last year, I got to remind people, Moose's only touchdown was the K5. He played for Jackson State. You know what I'm saying? He started Then you got Jalen Alexander. You know what I'm saying? Jalen even had some interceptions last year. And no one from a cornerback standpoint had more snaps on our team at DB, at cornerback, than those two gentlemen. So, yeah, we did upgrade. And I gotta speak to this too. When you add a Tim Stewart, then you add, you know what I'm saying, Solomon from Charlotte. You know, we added 3 FBS players, you know, just at safety alone. And then you look at what we did from a cornerback standpoint. We're gonna be fine just down on the defensive backfield.
And that Callaghan kid, that's gonna be a hell of a pickup for y'all, I believe.
For my Wildcats, we actually got a question for y'all. Edwin Moore says, was Terry Sims undersupported by BCU? It looked like he got 0 support from the university.
Terry Sims wasn't the right hire when he got the job. I'm going to pause. I'm going to let Steve talk about this because it got to the point that Terry Sims was sending personal messages to Steve because of what because of Steve telling the truth. So Steve, that's your area. Oh, it looked like you froze on us. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Hold up. You good?
Yeah, you good?
All right, my bad. So okay. Terry Sims, I would say he may have been underfunded in the last 2 years. And that was true of Bethune-Cookman University. Like, he was not the only one that had to suffer. Even our band, right, has been like dwindling in numbers. And it's just because budgets, right? We were going through a very tough time. But if you really want to get to the truth of it, just take off these last 2 years, we were 2-8 or 2-9 or whatever we were, and just go look at his previous 4 or 5 years. He had 1 winning season, or maybe it was 2. His first year he came out the gate, I think he went 9-3, 9-2, and then he went back to back like 4-6. Then he had like a 7-4 season. And then he had like another 4-6 season, and then we had back-to-back 2-9 seasons. He was funded in all of those other seasons when we were doing well and when we were doing bad. The funding never fluctuated. He was getting support, and our football program was. I mean, we were doing as good as Cookman could do from a financial standpoint, from a support standpoint. So when people look at just these last 2 years in a vacuum, and then they say, well, he wasn't getting any support. Well, that's kind of true. But if you look at his track record, and no disrespect to the man, because he did the best that I thought he could do. But no disrespect to him. He just wasn't the guy for the job. And that was that was following Brian Jenkins, if you guys remember, right? Let's go back. Alvin Wyatt, back in 2009, got fired. And we brought in Brian Jenkins. Brian Jenkins took almost that same roster and ran through black college football for like 5 years. I don't know if y'all remember that. I know sometimes people don't remember that Cookman was the king of college football for like a 5-year run. And that was because of what Brian Jenkins was able to come in and do. So Terry Sims had to follow that. And he did it for 1 year. And then every year after that, we were just average. We were just an average team. Like we couldn't, like we just didn't, we could never get going with from a recruiting standpoint. I thought we did okay recruiting, but if you just look at what, just everything, we just could never get it going like we normally, we're getting going. So to answer the guy's question, yes and no. For the majority of his career, he was supported like any other collegiate coach would have been supported. But his final 2 years,
Cookman had the highest budget in the MEAC, along with with A&T. We were $15 million a year consistently throughout Terry Sims' tenure until the last couple of years with some budget cuts. But we didn't cut back to like Alcorn. We're down to $5 million. We cut back to $10 million. So that's still comparable with other programs. You talk about Cookman not having money, right? And so we spent $150,000 last year taking players from the university to the stadium to practice. How many other teams spending $150,000 to go practice every year? It's not happening. And so that's on gas money and transportation alone. That's not going out of town. That's just day in running. So the funding, now again, was it the funding that he was accustomed to? No, he was accustomed to $15 million. Cut it back down to $10 million. So there is a cut there, but it's not like we were cutting down and trying to, buy shoelaces. So some of this stuff gets blown out of proportion, And so it's like, what about the helmets? We played in 6 different helmets last year. 6 different helmets. What about, aren't they short of helmets? We got 6 different helmets we played football in. So, some of this stuff is, again, it's about narrative. It's not the whole truth. And so, Coach Sims, God bless him. I think he's in the role that he should be in right now. At Alabama State, he'll be an asset to that program. I'm not certain that he is a head coach, but he's the kind of guy you want in your program.
Let me ask you this. The move to the SWAC has been what for Bethune-Cookman?
It's not something that our fans wanted, to tell you that. We were, because we're MEAC folk. I mean, we just are. It seems like a natural fit for FAMU. FAMU fits into the culture of the SWAC. It's much harder for travel for us because of where we're located. Nothing's an easy travel. The only somewhat easy travel is to Montgomery.
Yep.
Right? If we go up and play Bama State, that's 5 hours. You can do that and not have to think about it. Everything else is, it's a chore to get there. And it's not like you can just fly into an airport, and show up, take an Uber. It's a hard travel. It's a little frustrating for us because, before coming into the SWAC, we hadn't lost to a SWAC school in almost 15 years. We were like 9-0 against the SWAC. But then we come over at the same time that the institution and the football program is going through turmoil. And then we get over here and the narrative is, we can't compete over here. Well, no, we compete just fine. We've been smacking folks. What happened is that we are in a dry season right now. And so a lot of that had to do with, just the administration. A lot of that had to do with execution. Zoe talked about recruiting Mississippi. Terry Sims told us he don't recruit the state of Florida.
What?
Florida's oversat. Terry Sims' exact word was, the state of Florida is oversaturated, so you got to go find players other places. And if you
oversaturated.
Look at him, Terry Sims' exact words was, the state of Florida is oversaturated, so you got to go find players elsewhere. And so that's why if you look at his roster, a lot of them came from the same 4 or 5 junior colleges that he had a pipeline into. And then he would, so again, Coach Woody come over, the first thing he does is reestablish the network with high school coaches. To the point, the high school coaches were reaching out to us and say, "Hey, do you know about this dude? Is this coach really at Bethune-Cookman? Because we haven't heard from them in years." And so we're validating, yeah, this is a legitimate coach. That's not. And so it was.
That's crazy, man.
You can never be a head coach in the state of Florida and say that you can't recruit it.
I don't care what school you are in the country. You got to have somebody on your staff that can recruit the state of Florida. And there's that much talent in the state of Florida.
It is a land of infinite guys who can play football anywhere. And to have like a third of your team, not even from the state, is just
that's wild, man. That is wild.
That's
wild.
why we are kind of
that's egregious.
I think that's a byproduct of why you see the record the way it is too.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I mean, it's a bunch of stuff. It ain't just that, but that is
that's a big part of it though.
It's a big part of it though.
Yeah. Speaking of,
especially in this day and age with the transfer portal and so much turmoil and roster, turnover. If you got guys that's playing at home, they less likely to leave.
Yep.
Yeah. So just put it like this: Coach Woody, again, haven't coached a game yet, right? He gets in late. He's not even named the coach at National Signing Day. However, he just had his first, skills camp. He had over 300 kids there.
That's
over 300 kids from around the state. We had kids come in from New York and other places, but primarily. You got, because again, even if these kids, a lot of those, we have some 4-star and 5-star dudes, those dudes don't work out wherever they are. Even if you don't get them from jump. Now we got 7 2024 kids already committed. So we kind of on that TC route too. We're already getting commits for 2024. But even the kids that don't work out, wherever they go, transfer portal is wide open. You got to have those relationships now. And so, we building those. That to go back to the first question, that's why Steve and I say this is kind of year 0, because anything that happened this year, as long as it's positive, it's a bonus. Next year,
that's the year, huh?
Wow.
That's the year.
Our guy Zach says the fact that schools like Western Carolina and Furman are killing it recruiting Florida, and Sim said that BCU justifies his firing.
I mean. Wow. Among other things, that is a fireable offense. I didn't know he said that, Jay. If I had known that, I would wrote another article.
That's blasphemy.
Speaking of egregious, I already know who wrote this. Khalil. But he says, "Do I spy a team that's not beating Bama State?" Oh, never mind. That's everybody on this call.
Oh, Khalil.
Khalil, boy, listen.
It's too soon, man. It's too soon.
I said it's too soon. He just spamming the chat, dog. That's spam.
And he did say
he'll stop the slander.
He'll stop the slander if Coach DC pay for his tuition.
I'll stop the Jackson.
Hey man, you go JUCO. You gonna go JUCO, dog.
Oh man. But all right, let's talk about FAMU. Since,
why are we talking about FAMU?
I mean, I like talking about FAMU.
That seems to be a team that nobody on this call really cares much about. So I'll start with you, Zoe. The game with FAMU this year, will it be more competitive, or will we see kind of more of the same what we've been seeing the last couple of years?
I'll meet you in the middle.
Okay.
It won't be 7-6. It won't be 59-3. But I think we get them by 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
Wow.
So we're gonna get a semi-competitive game, but not like the one we saw 2 years ago. It'll come down to the wire pretty much.
Nah, we're not gonna put 59 on them in the first game. Not this year. But I said it last year though. I said last year.
He said we're gonna put 52 on them. 52?
Yeah, we're not gonna put 59. We're gonna put 56. You know what I mean?
Nah. I mean, FAMU is going to be formidable, but this team that we have, and I get the logistics of why everybody says what they says, but when you actually break down the roster of what we have, our defensive front is still intact, exactly the way it is. The back end is the way it is. You lose Aubrey, and you figure, you can't replace him with the man, But the one thing I can replace him with is guys in the middle of the defense that can actually cover. We built our defense with the mindset of what a lot of teams in the SWAC are going to do, as opposed to what we practice against every day from an offensive standpoint. And we're going to pretty much play a lot like we did last year, but we're going to mix some things up more this year than what we should have. Because I mentioned to you guys earlier that we coached arrogantly last year. But this defense is long. This defense has length. This defense is, I'm telling you, this defense is going to be faster than what it was last year. It's going to be different because we're not just going to be impressed man all the entire game. You know what I mean? But I'm telling you, when you guys see this front seven, you're going to be like, yeah, it looks very, very similar to what it was last year. I'm not saying this as a JSU fan. I'm just saying this as a football guy who just looking at the team. Because the defensive line is in tow. Big Junior's back. That's Cornish Miller. When you guys see him, you're not going to recognize him. He's in the best shape ever. He's going to be doing a lot of things different this go around than what he was the last time. And he held his own and had a great year the last time he was actually here. Devontae Davis, first team All-SWAC. Jeremiah Williams, who was third team, who's actually going to make a lot of noise this year as a junior. And then Philip Webb, man, the defensive end that we got from LSU. I mean, the dude is insane. And so, yeah, man. But to answer your question, I think the FAMU game, I don't have any fear of Musa. I mean, I don't. I think he's okay. I'm not here to say he's not a good quarterback. I just, from what we do and what they like to do with him, he doesn't put fear in me to think that we can't win. And then you take Xavier Smith away, who never did anything against JSU the previous two games himself either. And so when you add that, it's like, okay, now Xavier Smith is gone. You were locked in on him, and then you get pressure to him. I mean, you like Tom Brady with pressure. So I don't see really any pathway. They can say run the ball, but I mean, you pretty much contain that. I just don't see any pathway for them to have success. I don't at all.
All right. So let me ask this question.
Go ahead.
Because you said you don't fear Musa. And I'm not going to say fear, but what quarterback worries you in the SWAC?
That's a good question.
Right now, I'm going to say none. I'm not going to say that there aren't players in it that I'm concerned about, because there are. There's good talent in this conference. I'm one of the few people that really says on every team in this conference, there are players that give you concern. The talent has been upgraded to a team, seriously. I will say Andrew Body, but I mentioned this on Doc Show the other day. At some point, like this year, Andrew Body gonna have to come with it, because
consistency.
I don't know if people notice it, but Andrew Body's only won 9 games in 2 years.
Yeah, consistency.
And so he's gonna have to come on with it this year, because if he doesn't, it's like, what are we talking about? And so this year is going to define how we really, really view Andrew Body. I think he's a good talent, but it's like, I got to see it this year. I'm not going to say that he put fear in me. I understand his skill set. I'm not going to be disrespectful at all when I say that. He is a good talent, but if he doesn't get it this year, after this season, then it's like, okay, and what? You see what I'm saying? Because again, you are what your record says you are. We say that for a team, but we have to say that for players too. It's 9 games in 2 years. So at what point is it just hype or potential that we're harping on, or where we actually see the tree bearing fruit? And right now, we ain't seeing the tree bearing fruit. We're looking at it's a good seed, but we ain't seeing the fruit being bared just yet. So I would say probably him. Now he got Quay Davis, and Quay is a great player. They should be better offensively, but I think if the receivers actually step up around him and he's able to really do what he can do, then I would say him. I would say Demetrius Davis could kind of give us some concern. I would say, you know what, to answer your question, I would say him. I'm not gonna put last year solely on him, because first team, first year head coach. So it's kind of like Andrew Body was last year. But if he lives up to what we say Andrew Body was in high school, you see what I'm saying? If he lives up to what he can do too, then yeah, he could give some cause for concern. I'm gonna give last year as a reprieve. So to answer your question, I would probably scuttle or scatter around Demetrius Davis, possibly Andrew Body. But outside of that, from a quarterback standpoint, nobody. but plenty of receivers and running backs. You know, Agent Zero got all my concern for obvious reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of players. You know, Southern got a deep backfield. I'm a Kobe Dillon fan. We haven't seen much of him, you know what I'm saying, because of injuries and whatnot, because Sims got most of the shine, but I'm a Kobe Dillon fan. And I've always said that, you know, Southern tends to always keep a tight end. They just signed Evan Thomas. He's a dog. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be a really, really good player for them. But, again, it comes down to quarterback play. Are they really going to get the ball to him? So there's a lot of talent that you could be concerned about, but just who I'm afraid of, well, from a quarterback standpoint, nobody.
Yeah. Our man from ONG said, you better worry about South Carolina State.
No, I ain't got to worry about y'all. You better worry about us.
Oh, man.
Because guess what? When you lose to JSU, your coach going to officially be on the hot seat.
Ooh.
Buddy can be there as long as he wants to.
Okay,
I don't think Buddy going nowhere.
Nah, we've heard they've been talking about Buddy being out of there for the last 4 or 5 years. Buddy gonna be there as long as he wants to.
And Buddy, he go 2-8, and then he'll turn around and go 10-2. You know,
win the national championship the next year.
Yeah, they do that, man. So I ain't saying nothing about second. We from the MEAC. We saw them every year. I just know better than them.
I tell you what, you call him Buddy. After we get through with him that first game, you're gonna say he ain't my friend no more.
Okay, I like it.
So let me ask you this for the HailWildcat guys. Last year, but y'all put up a pretty good fight versus FAMU. How is that game gonna be this year? Considering you'll have a whole season of Woody under your belt by the time you go into that game.
Before y'all go, I just want y'all to know I got it on wax. I got y'all by 3 points.
Ooh.
Listen, I appreciate that.
I'm dead serious.
Listen,
I got it on wax.
I think FAMU, again, at this point, they should be very confident. But they have way more question marks than people tend to give them credit for. Like, they all of a sudden, Willie Simmons been telling everybody, we're going to run the ball, we're going to run. You haven't been able to run the ball since forever. But now all of a sudden, because you want to, you're going to fix the running game. You know, I think Jeremy Musa is a good quarterback. I trust him for what he is. Do I think he's the best thing since sliced bread? No. So I'm saying all that to say, I expect us, that game last year, we were right there with momentum until a fake punt that we saw coming a mile away. And Bethune-Cookman last year could not deal with adversity. So, with the same thing this year, I expect us to be in that game. The way I kind of have the schedule set up, I would not. We're going to be in that game, and I'm going in that game not thinking that they're going to beat us. Let me put it like that. And so, am I going to guarantee a win? No, I don't guarantee a win. But I expect us to beat one of the A&Ms. And we got Alabama and Florida A&M the last 2 games of the season.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. One of them. Yeah.
Y'all going to be one of them. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, to your point though, it was what, a 7-point game in the beginning of the fourth quarter.
It was a game.
We had them 4th down.
And you let them off the
hook.
hook.
We gave them a fake punt. We lost to Alabama State because we gave up we could not handle adversity last year.
And then you remember we had that, either it was a fumble or something, when I think I forget who it was.
I actually watched the game. I truly believe if Jalen doesn't throw the interception in the first quarter when they got their short touchdown, I think that was the game changer to me.
Jalen threw an interception, then they put other guy in there. He going in and throw a pig. It's like, come on, man. Like,
but even with all of that though, it was still 27-20 in the fourth quarter. Before 2 late touchdowns by FAMU. If you just look at the scoreboard, it looked like, oh, y'all got blown out, but it really wasn't the case.
It wasn't. But you know what? That was the thing for us all year. We had a couple of games where we just were like outmatched, like Jackson State and maybe a couple other games.
And
but if you go back and look,
that was it.
If you go back and look at like the games we played, and you go and just see how we lost some of those games, I mean, we were in almost every game, and then interceptions, self-inflicted INTs. I mean, just
No,
don't.
we
don't say self-inflicted.
Don't say self-inflicted.
We don't do self-inflicted in Daytona.
Well,
all right, keep that up in Tallahassee. Yeah,
Right.
and so yeah.
All I'm saying
whoever
is-
that was, I don't know who put that out there, but you wrong for that one. Yeah.
All I'm saying is we had our chances in a lot of games, man, where we were right in there late in games, and then we just wet the bed when it mattered most. And that's what that was. A lot of that was, I hate to say it, but Terry Sims. Like,
hey, pause, man. Blue blood. Hold on. Whoa. What's Blue blood doing, man? We don't do self-inflicted in Daytona. Cut that mess out, man. We lost because we didn't execute. We don't do self-inflicted. Don't do that. No, y'all not gonna label us with that. That's FAMU. Yeah. It's as putrid as that orange and green color. Don't do that. Yeah.
Hey man, say green and orange right here. Just say green and orange. Don't say orange and green.
Whatever. Yeah.
They
know who they are. Yeah. Yeah.
And look, let me drop this little nugget for you guys, because I know everybody harps upon Willie Simmons, right? All the nugget. Willie Simmons is 0-3 against JSU, right? Since they've been at FAMU. He's 0-2 against first-time head coaches.
That's why you got us by 3.
One part.
All right.
But he's 0-2 since he's been at FAMU against first-time coaches. Both losses were against JSU.
Yeah.
Tony Hughes and Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
TC's gonna make it 0-3.
Look, I thought FAMU last year. I thought FAMU played to the level of their competition way too often. Teams that play to the level of their competition, you point directly at the head coach. And so, again, they're not the only team that did that, but there were a bunch of games. I mean, they should have lost the Grambling game. That was questionable. Questionable call at the end. Alabama State, you get the block. So we're not talking about, like FAMU running through everybody. And so, and then, you come this year and they lose, they lose the 2 pass rushers. They lose the guy that the offense was really centered around. They couldn't run the ball. But magically, all that gets fixed. Maybe it does. If it does, God bless them. But I'm not just ready to just crown them, and run away like so many seem to be able to do. I think FAMU is going to have to show up, buckle it up, and prove it like everybody else.
Kelly Flicks did say they did be the first-time head coach in Bama State last year.
Yeah, 21-14, I think, something like that.
No. Well, that still stays in tow for JSU. He's 0-2 his first time coaching at JSU. It's going to be 0-3 when TC get there.
Yeah. You know what? And it's something I think I don't think we appreciate enough. And I think Jerry and I talked about this. I mean, it's a lot of newness in the entire league, man. It's a lot.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like and I actually kind of like that teams are flipping. I mean, there's a plus and minus to it, but you just really you don't know, man, what's gonna happen September, Labor Day starting. You just really don't know who's standing out. You don't know what teams really went out there and got after it in camp, and they rebuilt their teams. I mean, there are the obvious names, which I would say are Jackson State, A&M, and that might be it right now, who I would put them in the okay, they're gonna probably be okay. But everybody else, just toss them up at this point. Because you just don't know, because there's so much newness, from top to bottom. Even with Jackson State and FAMU, there's a lot of new players, man. So
I think the great thing about the newness, though, is that this is going to be a transitional year for this conference, a transitional and transformational season for this conference. To add on to your point, I've been saying this, that even last season, right? We only had 2 pronounced quarterback play in the whole entire conference. That was Shador and Musa. Well, now, because of that, and the exodus of those players, well, at least with Shador and even more quarterbacks, you're going to have a lot of new quarterbacks break in. And so I would look at a Southern, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, and Grambling, even for an example, that they have subpar quarterback play. Those same teams, if you have if you had good to an above average quarterback play, all those teams are good, right?
I thought Akil Glass was supposed to have been.
That was 2 years ago.
2 years
That
ago.
was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And see, I'm gonna use him for an example, right? You look at Akil Glass, like that Alabama A&M team really wasn't that great, but because he was an above average quarterback, you know what I'm saying? He was so much better. And that actually adds to my point. So the thing that you're gonna see this year is because you're gonna have an influx of new quarterbacks within this conference. Well, if we get average to, I'm not gonna say great because I don't think we're gonna get great quarterback play. I really don't. But if we can get average to above average quarterback play, and the reason why I said it this year is because the majority of those guys that you're going to get that from this year, they're going to be here the following season. Right. See, that's what I mean by transitional. Because now, look at the storylines for 2024. You're talking about, now Musa will be going, right? But they may have another quarterback that may play some this year, right? But watch this. Southern, Alabama A&M, Grambling, Jackson State, UAPB, Bethune-Cookman, Valley.
Alcorn.
You see what I'm saying? Alcorn with Macon. You see what I'm saying? You're gonna have about 8 teams that's gonna have returning quarterback play. So if we get average to above average quarterback play, now look at how you're setting that thing up with with the predictions and how you view the teams going forward for the next season.
Yeah. That's a great point. But Adrian got a question. He said, "Man, who the hell is y'all QB in Jackson?"
Hey, first of all, before you answer, so I'm gonna let you. The chat been wild tonight.
Wild.
They've been buck wild tonight, boy.
Wow, they've been on one for real, man.
I mean, from the jump. But yeah, go ahead, Zoe.
Man, he knows who the quarterback is. Jason Brown's the quarterback.
That's the what's the Virginia Tech?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Watch this, Adrian. Who's Southern quarterback?
I was just that's. But yeah, so I agree with you though about the quarterback play. Especially whenever if you are able to see continuity between staffs and quarterbacks as well. If we don't see a big turnover in offensive coordinators and coaching staffs and things like that, and you're able to see continuity with those quarterbacks, then going into your second year with those quarterbacks, you should see elevation of not just the quarterback play, but the entire offense as a whole, better understanding of the offense, of the playbook, and more continuity with receivers, etc. You should see a lot better quarterback play going into the second year if you see all those coaches stay.
And if the transfer portal doesn't get in the way, right?
That's another good point. That's another good point.
Well,
somebody said something.
It's gonna happen. I mean, look, we might well wrap our minds around it. You're gonna lose 20 players at the end of the season. There's no getting around it. It's going to happen.
That's it's gonna happen. And the question is, can you make it to where those 20 guys aren't 20 contributors, or aren't all 20? You know what I'm saying? If you lose 5 contributors and 15, depth guys, it is what it is. But if you're losing 15 contributors and 5 depth guys, then that's almost too much to overcome in one season.
I'm gonna say this: that's true, but in the same vein, it still can work because the sooner we wrap our mind and our head around that we're more at the NFL than what we realize, the better off that we're going to be. Because what you have to understand is
free agency.
It's free agency, and the portal is nothing but a waiver wire. I mean, I'm telling you. So you might well wrap your mind around, because, like, to add to your point, you're going to lose some contributors, but you know what? I can't worry about the continuity. I got to build it up in the spring and all throughout the summer. But if I lose an elite guy, I still got the opportunity to bring in an elite guy, or 3 or 4, because the opportunity is there now.
But see, to your point though, that continuity in the spring, that's where retaining your coaching staff comes into play, because the coaching staff don't got to build that continuity; they already got it, and the players that do return already know what the form or the existing coaching staff, what they require, what they want. And so you ain't teaching the whole team again. You're just teaching the new guys.
The system, like Bill,
exactly,
Belichick,
exactly.
Plugging and playing guys every year.
This is actually this might be a topic for another day because that's a problem. That's an hour in itself. So talk about how the SWAC non-conference schedules competing against other FCS conferences.
Yeah,
that's a topic for another day.
That's a loaded question right there.
But somebody else brought up one. It was by APR.
With the NCAA get.
I actually think they're going to end up making some changes to APR. Their hands are going to be forced. They're going to have to because of the sheer number of every team losing as many players as they are. You're going to have to.
There's no way you can meet the old APR standards in this new day and age.
If I'm not mistaken, they've already made changes because of COVID. And then
they got to do something. And then
because of transfer portal, there's something else that is in discussion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. But that's the thing. I mean, like you can't fault the coach for not graduating his players when half of them ended up leaving.
It's not graduating players. That's not the biggest hit on APR. The biggest hit on APR, mind you, is transferring out. You have a player to transfer out. That player has to graduate and finish school. Because, a lot of people think APR is solely on grades. It's not necessarily grades at your institution. It's retention. And all those players who leave, they have to finish and graduate.
No, the NCAA is not. Oh. Hey.
Wow.
Ooh, and that means topic of conversation.
Well, because that's the biggest hit that you get. Like if a player transfers out and he doesn't finish or doesn't graduate, you get deemed more on that more so than just a player, not actually going through. And honestly, I think most schools now have things in place with not just study hall, but like players actually, getting work done through their own little academic thing set up so they can actually get their classes and get the things done because most of the players are taking classes online anyway. They're not going in. So everybody's making the mark on that. It's the players leaving out and not finishing. That's the killer.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think to me, the best thing the NCAA can do, I'm not sure they will, probably because it's good, they won't. But the best thing they can do is whenever you sign a player, they got to make somebody responsible for that kid's education, period. And so, because right now with transfer, I think it helps the transfer portal. It helps everything because you sign these kids. I know it's a 1 year, you kind of renewal, but you get this kid in, you get them on scholarship. Somebody has to be on the hook for that kid, period. You don't have to count APR, count whatever you want to, but some kind of way when you get somebody into your program, either another school agrees to take over that, responsibility. You don't have to charge it against APR, but somebody needs to make sure that kid gets paid for because with the transfer portal, you get a bunch of these kids out there who think that they're going to land somewhere, and now they're trying to figure out how to pay for college.
Yeah. Too many athletic students and not enough student athletes.
And to that point, though, I think schools need to be a little bit more selective in who they're going after in the transfer portal. Some of these guys live in these big name programs because they're not doing their work in the classroom, or or they're not on par to graduate, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes we can get caught up too much in that player being a 4 or 5 star, and then you get them on campus, they use their eligibility up, they don't graduate. Now you dinged in your APR.
That's been the player that's only time, man.
Or the player that and you transfer 3 times, and you got to start your degree program over every time because you transfer to a school that don't got your degree.
Yeah, I know we're not talking about Power 5 schools, but that makes me think about the kid. Y'all know him up in LSU, Reek Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the deal is with him, but he done been in like 4 schools or something like that in like 4 years. And I know he's not the only one, but I mean, every school keep thinking I can change him. I can bring him in here.
You got the quarterback who was at Georgia, JT Daniels. His 5th school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like every year he been to a different school. Like there's no way that you can be on track to graduate.
No, he's last I checked,
he's at West Virginia.
Is he still there? I thought he left there and went somewhere else.
No, he at Rice now. He went to Rice, I think, somewhere like that.
Yeah,
he transferred again.
Yeah. Oh man, fellas, listen. I don't want to end this.
I wish we could do this for about 2 more hours.
I know, man. It's been an excellent conversation. Great conversation. I got one question though. Media Day, SWAC Media Day. Are y'all planning on attending?
I'll be there live.
My 25th wedding anniversary is July 25th, so that's an emphatic no. White
sound-
going
that-
for that. Yeah.
That sounds like a joint vacation, if you ask me. But go ahead. You do what you want to do.
I do have a question for you, Jerry. Man, I just want to say this. Before Terry Sims actually got to Bethune-Cookman, you guys, while you at the MEAC at the time, had hands down had the Parrot game on lock. Yeah, why in the hell have y'all got rid of the throwback Wildcat logo? When y'all wore that at the Florida Classic with the all gold with the throwback Wildcat logo, y'all not bringing that
back? They practicing those uniforms now, so they
man, oh my God, that was so hard.
Yeah, that was actually those uniforms were purchased by John Bostic for the Washington Redskins. His dad was actually All-American at Bethune-Cookman, so he wanted to honor his dad. I think that year was like the 25th anniversary of when his dad won MEAC championship, something like that. Can't remember. I think it was exactly 25 years. So he actually purchased that helmets, uniforms, everything. And I think we should just bring them out homecoming every year. Those things
every year. That's the best uniform we ever had.
Yeah,
that Wildcat logo, that helmet is hard.
Russell Haynes says, how many days before week 0? If I'm not mistaken, 41. Ain't that right, Zoe?
41.
41, and then you got the MEAC SWAC challenge.
SWAC MEAC challenge.
SWAC MEAC, there you go. SWAC MEAC challenge. You got JSU taking on South Carolina State. So looking forward to it. Before we go, man, we like to, give our guests, their time to shine. So we'll start with the Wildcat gentleman. Mr. Jerry, I'll let you go first.
Yep. Listen, thank you guys for having us on again. I'm looking forward to a good year this year. I think I'm more optimistic than Steve is. Even though we both kind of wrote this off as a year 0. Anything we get, this year, as long as we see progress. But I believe in this coaching staff. I believe in the roster. I think again, so many teams in the SWAC have question marks, particularly at quarterback. There's no reason why I expect us to not be competitive in most of these games. So good things coming from Daytona. Again, this is year 0. If y'all going to get us this year, because next year it's fully on. A lot of exciting things happening with things off the field and building and reestablishing this program into the winning ways that we're accustomed to down at Daytona.
All right, I'm gonna switch over to Steve, but our man Blue says year 1 may be rough. He said this a while ago, but I think Raymond can rebuild and can build it right in year 2 and 3. So there you go, Mr. Steve.
Yeah, first of all, thank y'all for having me, man. This was indeed it was a blast, man. Y'all guys are great, man. I love the knowledge from all you guys, sports and football and just HBCU in general, man. I just want to say that to the people that are in the chat and the people that are watching this, man, continue to support our HBCUs, man. They need us now more than ever with, changes to law and legislation. Even now more than ever is where we need to be polished up and shined as best we can be. So I'm gonna just leave y'all with that. I enjoyed my time, and anytime you want to have me back, man, I'm ready to rock. I'm sure Jerry will be ready to rock as well. So thank y'all.
First of all, Jerry put his anniversary over SWAC Media Day, so I don't know if we got no.
My wife fine, bro. My wife fine.
He said he can't lay up to nobody.
I met my wife at Bethune-Cookman. Best thing happened there.
Hey, congratulations on 25.
Congratulations, man.
That's you.
That's a big deal.
Steve, you actually said, and I meant to bring this up, which I'm glad you responded or said it. How does granted, I understand that y'all are a private institution, so the laws don't necessarily affect y'all quite the same as it would FAMU. But how are the laws in with what the census is trying to do? How is that affecting you guys?
So we are a private institution. However, we do receive state funding.
Okay.
So while we have some privileges with respect to like having a board and them being able, our board not being beholden to the state, the board still has some fiduciary responsibility that they have to kind of adhere to. But with respect to like what DeSantis and stuff is doing, I mean, I don't look, it's bad, right?
Mhm.
But I think that can be a positive for not just us, but HBCUs in general, right? Like that can help us, and it can help us to continue to funnel kids. And Bethune-Cookman has, I think they ticked up in enrollment this year for the first time in like 4 or 5 years. I think they're up like 4% or something like that. So, I mean, you keep doing that and getting our numbers back up. I mean, you can think something like what DeSantis did, like you can, that might be a direct result of some of the terrible laws that actually benefit us. So yeah, they affect us to a degree, but there are some nuances to where we don't really have to either report or, you know, have documentation on all that stuff, but that's in the weeds. But yeah, I guess I think I answered the question.
You did, and I appreciate that. And sorry, so I made you wait a little bit longer, but go ahead, man. Tell the people where they can find you.
Man, look, thank you guys for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. You can find me at with Tiger Talk, the 1400 Club. We're actually going to do our first live show for the season at Swipe Media Day next Tuesday on the 25th. And also you can find me on KC 1400 Media every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Central. Pretty much hit up all things JSU. And look, I want to tell everybody watching, man, stay tuned. Get ready for the Swag Me Act Challenge. When we sit there and put a powder to Buddy in South Carolina State. And then the next week we go to Miami to the Blue Blossom Classic and put a stake in FAMU so we can, claim our class. We're kicking them out of it and claimed it as our own. So
couldn't have.
I love, baby.
Couldn't have.
Oh man, I love it, man. Hey, so programming note, this Thursday, we are actually starting to wrap up the SWAC portion of the team by team. We have Grambling confirmed. We may have Valley as well. So
also be a good mix.
Yeah, we tried to mix them up in a way that
we tried to keep the rivalries out of this so we could actually have some dialogue. You know what I'm saying?
That's gonna be a good mix though.
But we will try to do that, and we will be finishing up on the 24th with Prairie View and Texas A&M. So I'm not Texas A&M. Lord forgive me, the worst team ever. Texas Southern, Prairie View and Texas Southern.
It's the colors.
It is the color stuff.
Well, I mean, ain't many colors at Texas A&M. Anyway, let's get up out of here.
Hey, I'm sorry, but
hit me up on IG or Twitter, whichever one you want, Jerry, so we can actually put it up.
I was just about to make kind of the same comment. Somebody in the chat, Dr. James Smith said, Steve, why you don't have any HBCU content in your Twitter page? That's not my Twitter handle in my name. That's my IG. So just want to make sure, just so I do rep my school in my Twitter, and it is.
Let them know.
I put it in the chat.
Let them know. Let them know.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, let's get up out of here, man. Like that, we out. This show was presented by betonline.ag.
Bring me my money.